All right, and welcome everyone to the very first All Night Portland 2022. Before we get started, I'm broadcasting with my inseparable partner and Cami Karras. We are at Central Office.
Hello, everyone. Yes, we're at the Central Office, having a great time. Very happy to see you and very excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's get into it. This is Metaverse for the rest of us. Cami, can you tell us, before we jump in too fast, about AWE Nite and what we do here?
I sure can, Nathan. AWE Nite Portland is one of 30 AWE community events worldwide. AWE Nights are the local embodiment of the AWE spirit in communities across the world. We provide a safe space for designers, developers, creative agencies, students, tourists, analysts, and others to come to talk and inspire others. We are here to help advance the augmented reality industry in each city by connecting and empowering its community. And thanks to the three of you who have used the form.
Yep. We've had several of you sign up to be volunteers and let us know that you want to be a part of this community event. So thank you for joining. Cami, I'm going to steal this from you because I'm so excited. As members of this community, you all today have access to a fantastic 20% discount to AWE in Santa Clara, June 1st through 3rd. Please come join us at the expo. We look forward to seeing you. Awesome. Your hosts today are Awesome Future. Awesome Future is an XR creative technology studio by Cami Karras and me, Nathan C. We look forward to sharing a lot more awesome with you in the future. All right, so the program today, and I am so excited, we are ahead of schedule, which is a good thing because we have lots to talk about. Today, we're going to be talking about Metaverse for the rest of us, right? It's an expert roundtable unpacking the hype and press and helping us understand, like, what's left for us after all of it. So today, let's meet the experts. And Cami, are you starting or am I starting? I'm starting. Okay, I'm gonna do it. So the first, actually, so for our program today, I gotta back up. Cami, I didn't explain the program. We gotta talk about the program, right? So we've heard that brands like Nike, Vuitton, Procter & Gamble, Facebook, they're all claiming corners of the metaverse for themselves and trying to build the predominant platforms and tools that we'll all be using in the metaverse in the future, right? The metaverse hype is owned by big corporations, by hardware manufacturers, and insulated startups. So how can we as a community make these technologies more humane, more safe and accessible for all? What does that leave us? What, after all the hype, what's left for the rest of us? There we go. And we can get into meeting our guests. Awesome. So Dr. Messina Morris is a VR enthusiast, an innovator, an educator, a speaker, an autism advocate, an author, a wife, and mother. She is the assistant professor of education for Morehouse Center of Excellence in Education at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. And her research interests focus on inclusion in STEM for the neurodiverse. She is also the principal investigator on the VR project Morehouse in the Metaverse. She launched her advanced inorganic chemistry course in virtual reality in the spring of 2021, making her a pioneer in the VR chemistry space. She believes that VR provides a pathway for creating inclusion in society for the neurodivergent, through immersive educational experiences that more specifically target vocational and rehabilitation goals. Her future is the authentic transformation of the educational system for our future leaders using immersive technologies and Metaverse. She recently founded Metaverse United, where she helps people find where they belong in the embodiment of the internet, which is called the Metaverse. Let's learn more, and you can learn more at unitethemetaverse.com. All right, next.
Next up, we have Noble Ackerson, from Cyber XR Coalition. In his full-time role, Mr. Ackerson is a director of product at Ventera Corporation focused on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data science, enabling responsible use of AI practices across commercial and federal clients. He also serves as president of Cyber XR, where he focuses on safety, privacy, and diversity intersections in XR.
Awesome. Excellent. Based in Sacramento. Somehow I muted. Awesome. Sorry about that. Stephen Christian of Iltopia Studios was born and raised in Sacramento, California. He grew up playing sports his whole life and excelled in football, where he continued playing at the University of Hawaii and Oregon State University. Watch out, Lisa. During his college career, he had a bilateral hip reconstructive surgery. That's hard to say, let alone go through, twice. And it was during that time that he began to explore art, comics, and development on mobile devices. This all became an avenue for self-expression as well as therapy. This path has led him into augmented reality space, where he empowers Black communities to express themselves through creativity, art, and technology. He lives by the motto, create and conquer, which means creating opportunities that help overcome stereotypes and conquer adversity. He founded Iltopia Studios to give other Black voices a platform. And if you're learning 3D development, you should totally check out his numerous courses and tutorials on those topics. All right.
Awesome. I will take the mic again. Next up, we have Lisa Payton. Lisa Payton is an early adopter and leader in the field of digital and immersive communications based in Eugene, Oregon. She serves as an immersive and strategic communications instructor at the University of Oregon School of Journalism and Communications. Payton is equal parts bleeding edge technologist, passionate educator, and data-driven strategist. She strongly believes in the power of technology to educate, entertain, and connect people around the world. She leverages the principles of psychology, immersive storytelling, and digital channel expertise to help organizations understand, reach, and emotionally connect with their audiences. So cool. Her hands-on experience includes implementing successful digital strategies for Intel Corporation, the Smithsonian, Hewlett-Packard, and Intro Digital Media. The quality and breadth of her work has been recognized with several SOMI social media awards. She regularly contributes to publications such as VentureBeat and Marketing Land and presents around the country. Combining a measure of lightheartedness with her social media mastery, Lisa has tweeted as Mad Men character Bobby Barrett. Her tweeting as the AMC show's Notorious Vixen garnered national attention and a Sammy Award nomination.
All right. Christina Pardner is a digital policy consultant, TEDx speaker, and the author of The Power of Digital Policy. She advises the XR Safety Initiative, XRSI's, on global and digital policy. She is the inaugural chair of the Metaverse Reality Check, which works to ensure that Web 3.0 is open, interoperable, safe, and prosperous for anyone, not just the few. The MRC is the first global mechanism to advise regulators, help governing entities, and support individuals and hold big technology corporations accountable for creating a metaverse that is safe for citizens and society. Wow, what an awesome group of folks. Before we go any further, let's give a big round of applause. I'm sure they can all hear it for our wonderful guests. Awesome. So we've got, we're gonna bounce really quickly to a brand new share. We're gonna watch a video really quickly to make sure that everybody can be on the same page about the topics that we're discussing. And so we culled media from all over the internet, from USA Today, the BBC, CNN, to find the most concise, clear descriptions of what the metaverse is and how it's going to impact your life. So let's go ahead and watch that video, and we'll start our presentation. I'm going to double check that I shared this correctly, because there is a trick, and we want to share the audio. All right, here we go.
What actually is the metaverse?
The term metaverse is fast becoming a buzzword in tech and business.
For us, the metaverse is a spatial construct.
Today, we're going to talk about the metaverse, starting with the most important experience of all, connecting with people.
So the word metaverse is quite a broad term. Generally, it refers to online spaces that allow people to interact in a more immersive way than a traditional website.
The term metaverse is popular in Silicon Valley, with Microsoft also talking about converging the digital and physical worlds.
If we think of the internet as something that we look at, the metaverse is a version of the internet that we're inside.
There is also a specific type of metaverse which uses blockchain technology, the same technology that's behind Bitcoin.
Privacy and safety need to be built into the metaverse from day one. You'll get to decide when you want to be with other people.
The idea is that we will experience the metaverse as an avatar, a virtual version of ourselves that we control. What will we actually do?
There's an artist going around Soho hiding AR pieces for people to find.
3D street art?
But people also use the term metaverse to refer to virtual environments where you have an avatar, a little cartoon person representing himself.
South Korean millennials and Gen Z are also gathering in virtual alternative worlds.
For us, the metaverse is a spatial construct, as opposed to the previous web, which was really a very linear kind of 2D flat thing. We want this one to be immersive. Now, of course, it doesn't mean it has to be virtual reality. It could also just be on a phone or on a desktop computer.
Well, now that's all super cleared up. Let's get started.
Let's bring the panelists up here. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. We got one more. Do we have one? Did we get us? We did it. Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. You have all been handpicked because of the work that you do around making the metaverse safe and accessible and more human. So why don't we start with that question? And we give you intros, and Lisa, sorry if we went a little overboard, but we were excited to share the expertise of this group. So let's just real quick go around for the whole group. And if you could, describe a little bit, we gave a lot of details about what you do, but please introduce yourself and describe your work in XR, and maybe like how much do you use the metaverse on a daily basis? Kristina, could you start for us?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a digital policy consultant, and what I really help organizations do is understand the opportunities and the risks that come with digital, including definitely the immersive environments and all of the other technologies that we started talking about, like, blockchain, NFTs and IoT and 5G and all of the other stuff that's going to be necessary to have in place for the metaverse to actually come about. Metaverse in the sense of the next iteration of the internet. And so what I do day in and day out is talk to people who are creating things. I actually try to write down the risks and the opportunities that we're actually seeing as part of that creation process. Try to understand the opportunities that the business has, because the business always wants to exploit technology for all it's worth, but it also wants to be inclusive. It also wants to be respectful of privacy, mindful of security and everything else that comes with it. And so trying to really balance those two things out. And so sometimes I get to play with technologies. Sometimes I get to just talk to other people about how to use the technologies. And then a lot of times I get schooled on technologies.
I love it. Thank you so much. Let's pass it over to Stephen. Welcome. And can you introduce your work in the metaverse and maybe how much you use it on a daily basis?
Yeah. So hello again. I'm Steve. I'm fresh out of class and I'm at medical school in Reno. And I would say that for me, the metaverse is, in my work in the metaverse, is often now an escape from my daily medical school duties as a, future physician. But a lot of it really has been focused on creative expression and looking at current tools that we have and what is the potential of using those current tools for future projects and future exploration or creations for the future. And so with it, I quickly learned that there's a lot of free stuff on the internet that you could just download and play with, and really pushing that to the edge and saying, what are the true use cases right now that people can tap in with to either further their career, build a community around their ideas, or just actually literally escape from their normal day-to-day. What the metaverse actually looks like, and how you actually experience it. It's the way I kind of describe it right now is we're sort of in the age before app stores. And so I was a Pocket PC Windows mobile developer. And so I remember the days where you had to go on this random site to find an app, and then maybe you have to pay for it, maybe you don't. And just sort of have that experience, and then you talk about it. You can't really experience that with other people now, but eventually we'll get there. So, fingers crossed.
Interesting. So you see still a lot of silos and barriers to that ubiquitous metaverse that we're hearing a lot about. I want to dive back into that with you in a little bit. Stephen, I also think you might be underselling yourself. I've heard you describe that you were actually paying for medical school through your metaverse consulting and creation. So props there, dude.
It's a work in progress. Medical school is very expensive.
Love it. Speaking of doctors and school, though not quite medical school, we are so honored to have Dr. Messina Morris here from Morehouse College. Dr. Morris, can you talk to us about the work that you do in VR at Morehouse and how much of your week is in the metaverse?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I am Messina Morris. I am director of Morehouse in the Metaverse, which means we made virtual reality the classroom. We are one of the first metaversities to exist, building out courses in virtual reality, but also the social side of campus life, because college isn't all about the books, right? No one goes to college just for the books. We also go for the social experience. And so we've made it a point to allow our students the opportunity to use their creative aptitude and abilities to develop culturally responsive spaces in VR and then inhabit those spaces. We've also made it possible for students to experience culture like the Metaverse Gala that we had for our Candle in the Dark Founders Week. So students have been able to dance a little bit in the Metaverse. We also meditate in the Metaverse, where we have mindfulness practice because we're really focused on mental health, and we're starting a fitness VR course as well. But students are able to engage in many different parts of the metaverse experience and even Web 3.0. I feel like the metaverse is just another example, another iteration of what the internet is, and it allows us to actually embody it. And I am really there to spread the message that honestly, your degree isn't enough anymore. I want you all to focus on innovation and entrepreneurship and agency, and being a part of the metaverse environment allows our students the will to be able to do that. So part of me taking my own advice was starting Metaverse United. So I started my companies primarily because it's good to talk the talk, but it's different when you walk the walk. And so if I'm going to ask my students to take a leap of faith, then I had to leap first. And so it's a lead by example kind of experience. And I am in the metaverse or on some type of platform in my Oculus VR, in my Oculus Quest headset, probably 5 out of 7 days a week. Yeah, I spend a lot of time there because I do a lot of developing of our classroom spaces, and I take people on tours and try to get our next cohort of faculty acclimated to the space. So I'm usually in there quite a lot, but I have a good time. So it's all fun for me.
I love it. Thank you, Dr. Morris. Noble Ackerson, you're next in my screen. Can you share your work, potentially both as a product person and potentially as a XR person, or as a standards and safety perspective, and how much time you're in the metaverse?
By the way, before I start, Nathan, Cami, huge fan of Streem. I've been a fan since Ryan Fink and Ty and others founded OTG on the go platforms, and that's actually what started my whole venture into augmented reality, assisted reality in that case. But you guys, the Streem was on the go, and Ryan and team were always pushing the boundaries. We were one of the first, if not the first batch of Google Glass partners on the Mirror API, and then eventually the GDK when they had apps. So thank you, Nathan, and your team for giving me a voice here today. My work in XR. So the background that you shared was adequate. For Cyber XR, it's a global coalition formed to address the need for diversity, inclusion, safety, privacy in the metaverse, an inclusive space that I would want to participate in. And coincidentally, I work quite often with Chris P, as she's put on the screen here, Ms. Podnar, and so with XRSI. And I think I do one too many things in the XR, so I'll just limit it to 2 or so things. I'm also a founding council member for XR Association's Future of XR Advisory Council. They call it XRAC because, you know, it's a DC-based firm. We like acronyms here. It's an independent advisory council focused on defining the XR extended reality ecosystem and informing the ongoing work of what they're doing, right? And so I'm sort of assisting, lending my perspective there as well. And so I guess the follow on to that was, what do I do? I believe it was, what do I do in the metaverse? Wow, I don't know if I do. I wasn't quite prepared. I didn't prepare for this, but I'll say it depends on how you define it. If I were to go by, say, Mark Zuckerberg on the Lex Friedman podcast, it's not really a place, but a moment in time. And so I'll leave it there. I'm on a video call with you, so I'm going to just say I'm in the metaverse with you right now.
Cami and I are huge fans of any time the metaverse is revealed to be something not as complicated and horrible as all of the futuristic stuff tends to point out. So thank you for, right, like, we're living some pretty augmented lives, right? Like I can wear flowers in my hair based on the camera that I'm on, and we can meet from across the country to have conversations with these experts who have been working in this media for years. Which leads me to Lisa Payton. Lisa, welcome. Can you talk to us about some of the work that you do? Lisa is a longtime mentor in the digital communication space and somebody that I've looked up to in social and immersive media. So it's super awesome to have them here and to learn about what it's like communicating at the edge of the metaverse. Lisa?
Well, thank you so much, Nathan. And first of all, I want to say I'm thrilled to be here for the inaugural Portland Nite, and it's lovely to see some old friends here. Awesome. I feel like I'm back home. I lived in Portland for 20 some odd years, and now I live in Eugene. I teach full time at the University of Oregon, and I just am now teaching my XR for communications class. And last week, as coincidence would have it, was the Metaverse week. So I spent a lot of time last week answering a lot of the questions that you're asking tonight, and I have a lot of opinions that I'm going to be sharing, some of which may not be very popular. In terms of my journey, I started in immersive in about 2006 with the virtual world of Second Life. I built a magazine, a publication dedicated to it, the business, real world business that was happening in SL. It was called SL Entrepreneur Magazine, and our tagline was making money in the metaverse. And this was in 2006. I ran that magazine for several years. I ran a global team. We were all avatars at the time. My staff picture is our avatars in my beautiful virtual office. And it was an amazing experience. And I remember, it's so funny, I was reflecting on what I was going to talk about tonight. And I remember one of our team meetings that I had. We were in Second Life on a beach surfing. It was an amazing, and I was playing music and we were meeting, and I just had this amazing moment of, wow, this shit is powerful and this is going to change the world. And I knew it in that instant, in that moment. And the fact that I can very well remember who was there with me and what I was doing, and it speaks to testament of how powerful this technology is. So I've been on the ride ever since. You know, I feel very, very grateful that I get to teach now. I get to teach the children's about XR and immersive technology. And just to be very clear, my focus, because you know, there's so much now going on with immersive, is really on communications and how we're using immersive for storytelling, marketing, and connecting with audiences and building communities online. That's really my passion point, is really how we build communities. So, but I think if we think about the metaverse and what it is, according to my definition of the metaverse, it absolutely does not exist yet. It is an aspirational vision that some of us have, but it absolutely is not a real thing yet. And I'm happy to share. I wrote down my definition in case, because I spent time thinking about this, right? Yeah. Okay. So, so my definition of the metaverse is: a metaverse is an open network of virtual worlds focused on social connection, in which users can interact with the computer-generated environment and other users. So, do we have virtual worlds? Yes, we do. Is, you know, metaversity a virtual world? Absolutely, it is. It's, you know, it's a wonderful place where you can go and do all these amazing things online in this, you know, in immersive environment. But in my view, and you know what, I rode this wave back in 2006, 2007. There was a project called OpenSim. Some of you may remember it. It was very much like Open Compute Project, if you know about that, or any kind of open source. It was trying to create an open community of all the connected virtual worlds that were popping up. And I played in that space for a while and was so excited because we all had invested time in these avatars, and to go into all these places and create new avatars back in the day was such a pain in the ass. It's like, why can't I just get from this place to this place? And we tried to get them to talk to one another, and it never really panned out. And so from that perspective, if we think of the metaverse as, you know, this universal place, it's all of these virtual worlds coming together, accessible, not paywalled, not restricted. I mean, that's the dream. That's the utopian dream in my head. And so I'm not going to give the term the metaverse to the Zuckerbergs of the world. F them. We own this word. We own this term. And in my view, it doesn't exist, and it's going to be a long time before it does.
Love it.
Mic drop. Mic drop right there.
Mic drop.
Mic drop.
Okay. Dr. Morris, why? Tell us why we're not there yet.
Why aren't we there yet? Because things don't talk to each other. Because I'm on one stagnant platform throughout most of my metaverse experience. And in order to get to another one, I have to back out of that one, quit it, and then go into another one. And then I can't take my beautiful avatar self that I spend so much time putting together into a space, and then I go somewhere else, and then I look like something that I don't look like, and then I have an attitude because I'm not represented the way I want to be represented in another space. And so that is quite a big problem, because when you don't feel good, you don't play good, you don't connect well. And if we're going to have social connections with people and it be real and authentic, then I want to show up how the hell I want to show up. So,
so I just want to capture this. This is this amazing idea that interoperability, right, isn't just limiting our ability to like communicate and have like this app and that app. But what I'm hearing you is the ability for you to bring your representation, your avatar, your your identity with you is really key for the metaverse feeling safe and like that you have a part for it. That's
exactly. And so
that's a whole other angle.
Yeah, we're actually studying culturally appropriate avatars and why avatars can't be interoperable, because you spend all this time enabling, using face enabled avatars or trying to get it to look like something that's representative of you. And then you go onto another platform and you have to create another avatar where they don't have the facial features, or they don't have the quite 4C hair. They don't have my locks, and they don't have them purple or something like that, and it's a tough experience for a lot of people, because then it doesn't feel like you're actually in this space the way that it's supposed to be. So we have quite a long way to go, but we'll make sure they get it right.
Awesome. Anybody else want to dive into what else do we need to make this idea of the metaverse real?
I'll actually second that. I'll actually second the standards issue. Like, we don't have standards yet, right? So I think that that's a really big missing component here. Like, until we have standards, we're not actually going to be able to be in the metaverse. But I think we also are missing the human side of the metaverse. So what we're hearing every day is like, oh, this company's doing NFTs. We're using our blockchain capabilities here. We're actually in the metaverse. But really, we haven't decided yet, what do we show up as humans like in the metaverse? Like, do we have rights, right? I mean, you have certain rights. Like today, I can't just come and punch you in public, right? Or at my house, or even at your house. But what happens when we go into the metaverse? Like, do we have our human rights in the metaverse? Do we actually have any rights in the metaverse? What belongs to us? What belongs to others? We haven't defined any of that yet. And yet everybody's claiming parts of the metaverse for themselves in terms of headlines, I think in part to stake a claim, and then also to drive investors. And that's all well and fine, but I think that what we really need to understand is at the end of the day, it's going to be you and it's going to be me. It's going to be all of us as humans that need to understand and decide what we want to show up as, or if we want to show up, right? And right now, we don't have an environment that is open to everybody, not just inclusive, but also accessible. Like, we need to remember all of these things, right? That's also safe, where you can actually come and understand that you're not going to be attacked. You're not going to be assaulted. You're going to feel welcome. You're not going to be threatened or intimidated. So there's so much, I think, to consider and to talk about before we can say, yes, we're there. And I think we're just in those very early days, which reminds me of the very early days of the web, when we did really crazy things just because we could.
AOL
right?
chat.
And we actually did not have any framework. So in my mind, I'm just like, dude, let's create a framework in which we know what's okay and what's not. And then let's have creativity and innovation happen within that framework, knowing that we're not going to harm people.
So, what's interesting, Chris, is have we mastered that with just the internet yet?
No.
Privacy, safety, security, accessibility, that hasn't been mastered yet. So for us to then say, oh, well, we want these decentralized autonomous organizations to then, be a part of Web3, it's kind of like, wait a minute, hold on. We haven't even gotten the internet under control yet. We haven't even made it accessible for all people. There's so many different things that we haven't done with the second iteration of the web. And now we're jumping to the third, and it's kind of like we're putting the cart before the horse, or is it the horse before the cart thing?
Oh yeah. I mean, like before we hopped onto this call, right, we were talking about like having children and keeping children alive and time for plants, right? And I was thinking about that because I too am a really bad plant person. I have like one cactus that has survived, right? And so before I can move on to like a really big plant, my husband told me I have to keep this cactus alive for a while. I think it's the same. I know, exactly, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, very much like what you're thinking, which is like, hey, how about if we just kind of get the basics down, right? And not hurt each other, not harm each other on Twitter. And then
that part.
Exactly. I'm like, and then we can move on.
So I love it. Thank you so much, Kristina and Dr. Morris. Noble, how do you sort of share these conversations, right, about safety, about the complexity of the metaverse? How do you help people understand these terms and challenges in simple terms, and how it's going to be affecting people's lives in the next couple of years?
It's a tough one. So first, I think we're currently living in this, I'll call it the Kevin Costner approach to delivering some of these experiences. If you build it, they will come. Solutions looking for problems to solve, right? That tactic has never worked and won't work. And I'm saying that because, well, let's start here. If we look at the typical technology adoption cycle, we know that we can't force solutions onto what they call like the early majority or the late majority or even the laggards, right? This is how I'm defining regular people, just explaining this too. It never works. And I'm not talking about concepts, experiments, you know, the cool stuff that I'm seeing out there. Those are very valuable in laying the framework for some of these ethics conversations that we had. Actually, before I finish that, I want to sort of branch off it and address something that I heard. We heard about, you know, cool things that were happening, even though we're not there yet, like interoperability. It's not just that. I think Kristina addressed some of the ethics parts, so safety, security, privacy. It's not just interoperability, it's also intraoperability. Like some of these systems don't talk to themselves. Like there's the ecosystems don't talk to themselves. And I'll give you a very bizarre example. You've got, I've got my AltSpace VR persona or avatar. I've got Microsoft Teams. I've got other virtual systems at Microsoft through Microsoft Mesh on the HoloLens, and there is no seamless intraoperability, let alone interoperability, right? Of course, there's also extensibility as part of that in the standards that was mentioned before. So back to how do I explain this? I think, you know, if you build it, they will come. We know that doesn't work. When bringing real solutions to market, we should spend more time in the problem space, understand not just the opportunities and the, you know, the shiny objects and shiny things that we're being fed by some of these big tech companies, but what failure looks like, what harm looks like. Rather than if you build it, they will come, it should be if they come and if their needs are met, we will build, right? And so it's not about moving fast and breaking things. It's about systematically thinking about the success criteria and the failure criteria. And I think I'll end it here with, back to Kevin Costner, I think he would have been a terrible metaverse strategist. And so what I say to the layperson is, don't jump in it because you think there's a quick win, a quick buck to be made. Understand the technologies and what the possibilities are. Certainly experiment. If I'm speaking to certain audiences like, you know, parents and stuff like that, I'm sort of impressing upon them about, you know, their rights and what kind of data is being collected. And that's how I look at it. I'm more pragmatic in that way. I'm a product manager by trade. And so that's my sort of worldview there.
Really great answer. Thank you so much, Noble. That was really well articulated. I'm going to take us into the speed round. So I am going to ask every one of you first what is one thing that everyone should know about the metaverse? And just give me your quickest answer that you can do. Stephen, let's start with you. What is one thing that everyone should know about the metaverse?
That most of everything that you see is probably made from a game engine or Blender.
Great. That was really great. Well said. Lisa, how about you?
Doesn't exist yet.
Yes. Awesome. And then Dr. Morris?
I would say it's a place where we can all build and develop something very special. And so I would stay open-minded to the idea that it can still be built by all of us, for all of us.
Wonderful. That's really heartwarming. Noble, what do you got?
I'll invoke Steve Jobs on this one if I could. I'll say start with the customer experience and work backwards towards the tech. Start with understanding the needs, and the market will reward thoughtful, ethical, articulate implementations of an interoperable, extensible, and experience that everyone wants to live in, regardless of your culture, and that kind of stuff.
Man, Noble, that takes patience. How do you teach people the patience to start with the users like that?
I talk to developers every day. We take, scientists and engineers love shiny things. I love shiny things. I have that background. So, it takes a little bit of discipline to get away from the shiny object syndrome, and slow down a bit, and rather than jump right into what are my requirements, start thinking about, we have an assumption that this is the happy path, but what if it's not? And so this is something, sort of starting with base principles and then working our way back with asking some of these hard questions, spending enough time in the problem space, right? And then teasing it out in the problem space. Again, I'm not talking about experiments. I'm not talking about, proofs of concepts and none of that. That is important. It pushes the tech forward. It is more having, a diverse enough, set of people in the room, bringing perspectives, hearing and listening, and implementing things that, listening from the actual users, from different perspectives. Is how we actually don't break things once it becomes real.
Awesome. Kristina, can you round us out? Thank you so much, Noble.
Sure. I think I'm going to say, of course, because I'm like the digital policy Sherpa, I know about risk and rewards. I'm going to say that risk is worth taking as long as it's for a good cause and contributes to a good life. And that means that you have to put humans first. And we haven't done that yet.
Agreed.
Nathan, you're on mute. There we go. You're off mute.
We're back. Cami, did you want to take the next speed round question?
Yes, I have got this. I definitely know. Everyone answered the previous question, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Great. So why don't we quickly discuss, or why don't I ask you, what should we have discussed? Dr. Morris, can we start with you?
What we should discuss is how exactly are we going to make something inclusive when it's not quite accessible yet for all people. So we still have people that don't understand or have good access to connectivity and the internet. We have a lot of people who have disabilities, neurodiverse learning challenges, intellectual disabilities, physical disabilities, where being a part of this metaverse conversation and space is not quite all-encompassing and all-inclusive for them. So then how can we really talk about building something when, like I said, even with the internet, we go to Web 2.0, we still haven't mastered accessibility yet well there. So those are questions that really need to be addressed. I think that we have some understanding that we should think about humanity first. I think Christopher Lafayette is doing the Gatherverse Summit and has a humanity first approach. And I have heard many great ideas towards putting humankind first. One of the biggest parts of that is also making it accessible for all people to be able to use it, and making it safe for all people as well to be able to use it. So while it can be a great equalizer once people are using it, it can help monetize and develop generational wealth, and people can create businesses and all those kind of things, but that's further in the future. And what we really need to concentrate is making sure that from the womb to the tomb, like we say in the South, or, you know, from generation alpha to baby boomer, that all people are included in this space, because that representation is going to matter when it comes to it being for all of us.
Yes, absolutely love that. Very good. Big hearts. Kristina, what should we be discussing?
We should be discussing how to be inclusive. Like, what does it mean to be inclusive? What does it mean to be accessible? What does it mean to be safe? What does it mean to have privacy choices? I think none of these should be assumed definitions, right? Just because I think of them one way doesn't mean that you think of them the same way. And that doesn't make it bad. It just makes us people, right? And so
Yeah.
I think we need to start having that conversation and what that means, and catching ourselves in our own biases and our own assumptions. And I'm starting with myself first, right? So a lot of times I think about the technology and how I might use it, or how my colleagues might use it, because that's my only experience or point of reference. But actually going and seeking out different perspectives, or asking people about how they might use the technology, or how they might feel when they use that technology, I think is really critical. I don't feel like we're having that conversation right now on a global scale, which is why, you know, at XRSI and working with Noble and others, and I'm so grateful, Noble, for your support in starting the MRC, being a founding member of it and pushing it forward. When we talk about the MRC, we really talk about a board for and by the citizen, because we want the citizen voice in all of the conversations. And it's so critical to have that at the regulatory and legal table, making up laws and regulations, at the corporate perspective, actually having citizens as part of your user testing, as Noble said, bring folks and understand the problem you're trying to solve, or include folks actually in the solution. Right. So I think that it's really, really critical that we have those conversations, that we start having them now, and that we understand that it is such a brilliant world that awaits us, but only if we build it, and only if we start having those conversations. Otherwise, we're going to be back to the same problems we have today, and it's not going to be a very pretty world. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now.
What a beautiful soapbox. Stephen, how about you? What should we be discussing?
As the resident creator, I think what is the file format and what are the size limitations? I think when we're talking about existing in a digital space, and this is me from like my web development days, where I forgot to compress a JPEG, and then it like wrecked the whole website. Right? It's like, what are the limitations for us to develop stuff in the metaverse that allows for us to have these memorable experiences, right? You know, if you only have 2 megabytes, what can you do with that, right? If you have 2 gigabytes, you can do a whole lot with that, right? There's so many things that there's so many sort of technical things that really impact our experiences, to where if the file format isn't right, and the limit and the size limitations aren't where we want them to be, then people actually won't use it, because it's not worth it, you know. And so, and I think that's one of the things that that really gets lost on people, where it's like, okay, you built this whole elaborate experience, and then you can't export that thing, and you can't upload it to whatever server is hosting it, and then you just have a video.
Yeah.
I once tried to download the AR Wine app on grocery store Wi-Fi, and it took me 20 minutes of wandering the grocery store just to try and see what was up. So it was like, even the most dedicated don't get their way. So there's a really interesting conversation that started up in the chat, and we're actually, oh my goodness, so close to the end of our time here. I think we should transition over to some audience questions. We're moving kind of fast, keeping it light. But there's this question that Stephen Emery asked, and there's a couple of these questions right around how do we take hold of the narrative about what the metaverse is or can be, and how do we like pull it away from those corporate forces and these ideas of, you know, like Mark Zuckerberg controlling the conversation? How do we as people, as Christina's been so lovely calling them citizens of this world, how do we stand up and take over this narrative?
Well, I'm going to pipe in here, and I think Stephen's asking just absolutely the right questions, and we need to be thinking about the how. How do we create this vision of the metaverse? And it's a complicated answer, and again, this may not be the most popular answer. I'm a little jaded and a little cynical, and I will say that I think the train's left the station. You know, having gone through OpenSim back in the day and seeing how that did not work, and even looking at things like, you know, AltSpace, how it was going to die, it was going to go away, it was going to close down before Microsoft came in and saved the day. And those stories resonate, you know, through many different types of technologies where the big overlord comes in order to make something continue, something good, you know, continue on. I will also say I don't think all big tech companies are created equally. And if we look, I think it will require some sort of partnership with a large entity. Again, this might not be the most popular sentiment, but let's just think about, and I did work at Intel for 5 years, but if we think about a company like Intel, who they make their money powering the internet. They make their money powering this potentially new metaverse. They want, I mean, Intel, it's very much in their interest to make sure as many people as possible are connected. And so I think if we think about companies from that perspective, that could potentially, where their business interests align with an open network that's accessible for all, I think that's a happy marriage. Now, Intel isn't perfect, and they've made a lot of missteps, in my opinion, and they're just, you know, so I could go down a different road there. But the important thing is to try to figure out who those big players are that can have the power to step in, because to Stephen's point, you know, I don't know who can exactly go up against Meta/Facebook. I mean, they do, you know, even with all the negative press that they're getting, I think that because they're so huge and because they offer this global network, you know, open to advertisers, one of the only global, you know, mobile networks open to advertisers these days, unfortunately, they're going to survive. So that's my take on it.
I'm going to disagree with you, Lisa. I love you, but I'm going to disagree with you, and only because I do work with a lot of global corporations and a lot of global companies. And I think that for a lot of the big tech who are doing crazy and doing a lot of things that is not okay or would not be agreed to be okay by a lot of us, I think there's a lot of companies out there that are trying to do the right thing. And so not to say that, you know, they're saints, but to say that they are trying to do the right thing because shareholders or investors are holding them accountable for doing the right things. And so I think we do have hope. I hope that, you know, we can all have hope. I don't think that we've lost the battle, but I think that at this moment in time, the biggest mistake we can make is to give up or to assume that somebody's going to come in and save the day. They are not. Congress and our representatives are not astute enough to understand these technologies. They cannot speak the language. They cannot create regulations and laws in the United States or in any other country that is ahead and forward leaning ahead of these tech companies. I think that's where, again, I'm going to come back and harp on the citizen, because what I do know is that there's a lot of us. I mean, just look at everybody on this call today. If we all got together right now, we could come up with some pretty doggone smart things and tell them not necessarily how to solve the problem, but we could come up with some pretty good steps to getting there, right? So I think that as a citizen forum, as a citizen group, whether that's 15, 20, 100,000, 100 million, like whatever it is and whatever it takes, we need to come together and start holding entities and regulators accountable, and each other as well, right? And looking at it and saying, look, we have to change the kind of behavior we've had today, and we need to make sure that what's going to come next is something that we actually want to be proud of and pass on to the next generation, because right now I certainly am not very proud when I look at my child. But, please have hope. I think that there's really good people out there fighting the good fight. And I think there's opportunities to join that. Whatever you do, don't allow yourself to be silenced, because if there was ever a time to speak up and have your voice be heard, I think it's now.
Yes, Kristina, you took my favorite rallying cry right out of my mouth. Thank you so much. We have just a couple more minutes. Anyone else want to jump in on this controversy about where we're at and what we need in order to have that safe, accessible metaverse?
I think we need talent. We need more people who are educated in this space. And so it means bringing those people who lack the knowledge into the conversation. So there are a lot of people who have the capability and ability, but they don't have an opportunity. So it's about exposure and it's about finding the talent. Otherwise, we're going to stagnate again, and none of this stuff is going to grow and be built upon, because we don't have enough talent, enough developers, enough people in the space to be able to move it along. Right now, even though the world seems like it's really large and there's a lot of people working on it, that's because we're in the space. But outside of our world, we are very few and limited, and we can't do it all. And so it's going to take for us to infuse this type of technology and understanding in the educational system, starting with our very young, and making it safe for them is our responsibility to be able to facilitate innovation and the education, because education is going to be the great equalizer for a lot of young children who didn't have opportunities, who didn't get to choose where they were born or who they were born to. And it's important that we start to train teachers on how to use this technology, just like how they started with poster boards and then PowerPoints, and now, they could do Prezis and other different presentations. Our students need to start engaging with this material now, so that by the time they become college students or they get ready for the workforce, they have enough talent and understanding and ability to be able to change all of the narratives that we're talking about now. And then it won't just belong to the large conglomerate Facebook, because we would have raised up a population of young people who understand humanity and understand how to build the world that we really truly want to inhabit in the metaverse space.
Thank goodness for the XR educators, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Morris, I think you're predicting unwittingly some of our upcoming programming. This conversation about how do we get started, how do we change and impact, right, that pipeline for talent and for those who want to get involved, but maybe need more resources or exposure to
just
get
consider
started.
me the Oprah of the metaverse. I'm here to give y'all a little edutainment. You know what I'm saying? Little bite-sized, digestible chunks of information so that you'll know where you belong in this embodiment of the internet called the metaverse. So that's what I'm here for.
I guess one thing I want to add in terms of context here, because a lot of this stuff is really adjacent to gaming. A lot of it is adjacent to gaming. And to put into context, 10 years ago, or even, a couple years ago, it was unfathomable to think that you can play an Xbox game against somebody that's playing on PlayStation. And so we're having these conversations around, oh yeah, you have this device, you have this device, you have this platform, you have this platform, and they're supposed to be interacting and succinctly working together. And you're supposed to have this amazing experience. Y'all can't even play games together. How are you supposed to expect to get to this point when this base level thing, the foundation was laid by Fortnite? Fortnite changed the game in that area. And so it's let's be a little more realistic here and say, okay, when in 20 years where we've paved a way and we have more stuff, that people want to pursue in this metaverse space, who are going to be the people that are creating these things? Are they going to be the seasoned vet that's been working in Cinema 4D for 30 years and they just in the last edge of their career is moving over? Or are they going to be the nice young bucks and then all the new kids that have grown up in this internet space and are contributing in an authentic way? It's the whole thing with YouTube. And so I'm really curious to see where this goes. And hopefully, I'll be done with medical school at that point, and so I actually be able to enjoy it.
Love it, Stephen. Thank you so much. So I want the audience to please be aware, there have been two pretty fantastic offers in the chat. One is to, as citizens of the new Metaverse, to contribute to some of the Metaverse reality check symposiums and studies. Lisa has also, with Christina Pardner, Lisa's also just added a link around an XR pub crawl that's coming up. This is exactly the direction, right, that we want these AWE night, these on-night Portland events to be headed, where there's conversations, there's additional things where you can, both as panelists and guests today, join in this conversation a little bit deeper. I want to take, we are at time, and I want to be respectful of the 30 plus people who have been with us today. So give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you, Christina Pardner, Ackerson, Dr. Messina Morris, Stephen Christian, and Lisa Payton for joining us on this inaugural On-Night Portland. Thank you all so much. I'm going to move very quickly into just some final wrap up for our event. Thank you all so much for joining us. I am still sharing the screen. Oh, there we go. We are gonna getting used to the technology. So the next segment that we have is called the Pdx Effect. This is a regular recurring monthly segment that we have at On-Night Portland, where we focus and give feature to XR projects made here in Portland and share them out with the world. One of the things that we're excited to share is the Creative and Emergent Technology Institute, also known as SETI, will be producing some immersive AR experiences in Pioneer Square, May 5 through 30. Make sure to check that out at seti.institute. They are looking for support for some of their projected and spatial AR projects. Additionally, I wanted to introduce this group to the Mobile Projection Unit. We're a little short on time, so we're not going to play the video. Mobile Projection Unit are two women artists based here in Portland who do live projection multimedia installations that often include dance, interactive video, and generative video. They're looking to help fund a couple seasons of interactive community scale projection art. So check out their GoFundMe. Oh my gosh, I am so thankful for all of this chatter that's going on in the chat. Please forgive me as we bust through this. We've got a community survey at AWE all caps PDX/survey. Tell us what kind of content and conversations you'd like to be a part of in the future. One more thing, and we do need volunteers. Special shout out to volunteer Lindsay for joining us in the Command Central today. And for those of you who have filled out the form already, that's bit.ly.AWE/PDX_volunteer. And I think we have come all the way to the end. Our next event, Entering XR, will go live on our meetup page just shortly. We'll be looking at building bridges into the metaverse with intention, community, and meeting 1 month from today. I'm going to go ahead and stop this share. I'm going to bring all of our amazing panelists back up onto the screen one last time. And thank you all so much for joining us on this inaugural AWE Night Portland. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. You all have a wonderful week.
Have a good night or rest of your day.
Awesome. Thank you.